Hey, what is going on, you guys? JPB Productions here, and today I am going to be reviewing episode 6 of Survivor 43. Whew, Gabler had his breakthrough. So the entire pre-merge, right, Gabler was getting this terrible edit. I mean, not terrible, but like, it was like terrible in the sense that a lot of the people that the editors wanted you to not root for were like making fun of him. We saw that with like Ellie and Janine, but he didn't have much game going on. But you kind of saw the potential, and his edit was a little weird because it wasn't necessarily translating with the game that he was playing. So it was very interesting to see. I mean, his game just didn't match up with the edit that he was receiving. So it was very, very interesting. And then this episode, final 13, there's still plenty of game left. He has his breakthrough, and he targets Ellie, and Ellie goes home. And Gaylor looked like a badass in this episode. he did phenomenal. Definitely the MVP. This was a very, very good episode. Easily my favorite episode of the entire season so far. So I'm going to talk a little bit about it. So we find out very, very early on into the episode that, okay, they're merged, and James, like, yells, and, like, yes, we're merged, and then Carla was skeptical, as always, yeah, it's the fake merge. And then we get to the challenge, so we get to find out exactly what it is. And I really liked this. They simplified it. They made it a lot more simple. In 41 and 42, it was very, very confusing. Like, they barely even made it better in 42, to be honest. Jeff thought that they did, but not really. I mean, the team that lost still won. So I thought that was really, really stupid. And honestly, I think this is way more entertaining. With the hourglass twist, there was no mystery both times. I mean, yeah, sure. If there's anyone that would not smash the hourglass, it's Roxroy. But even then, you knew what was optimal for him, so it almost didn't even really matter. And then, like, yeah, with Erica and Roxroy, like, you didn't really care whether they smashed it or not, because if they smashed it, you're like, wow, like, the team that lost just won. This is so stupid. And if they don't smash it, you're kind of just like, why? Like, that's so dumb. Like, you're putting yourself at risk voluntarily when you don't have to. So I think that that's why the hourglass twist is a bit boring. If I'm being real, this may have been a little less of a big production, but Noel, drawing the odd rock and then having to bet on a team, I just think is so much more interesting. That's just my opinion personally. Um, so yeah, that's exactly what happened. And Ryan, I mean, he did phenomenal in that challenge. I mean, that team was definitely behind. They were quite behind. They made a very, very interesting comeback. And I think any Survivor fan knows that every challenge really does come down to the puzzle, especially as of now. So they were able to come back from that. But Ryan, like, he literally flips upside down to try and get Carla off. I mean, Carla had an injured hand, and I won't lie, like, yeah, like, the last thing you probably want to be doing is like gripping your entire body hanging off of something. When you split your hand open. So as soon as Carla split her hand open, I was like, oh my gosh, what a disaster! They're gonna lose the challenge. This is unfortunate. I feel bad. But that didn't happen, and they ended up coming back, and the other team lost. So yeah, that's what happened with that. And then we have the merge feast where Ryan. I mean, this season is so great for so many different reasons. Now, I mean, this season, like, so far has been very, very slow, and like maybe it'll go back to where it was before, pace wise and quality wise. But this episode is really, really good, and it makes me like really like this season as a whole. Um, but at the merge feast, Ryan was literally like, "Okay, guys, we're gonna be the final seven," which was obviously unrealistic. It was just funny. I just thought I'd point it out. It was just really funny. And then everyone's reaction, like, there's no way that's gonna happen. But then to Ryan's face, they say, "Oh, great idea," which is what you should always do in Survivor. Whenever someone pulls you into the woods or gives you an idea, you always say yes. This is Survivor Game 101. This is Org 101. So yeah, I think that was funny. That was funny. That's all I have to say about that. So I don't know if there's anything else that happened at the merge feast. I mean, yeah, oh yeah, like Gabler said, "Oh, Ellie went through my bag," while Janine was sitting there, and there was something about this that I liked. Everyone was saying how it was terrible gameplay, how Gabler is the MVP probably, but his delivery to get Ellie out was bad. It was just, but like you trust him more because he's so honest with everybody. So I thought it was fine. Um, we ended up having that where Gabler just blurts it out in front of everyone at the merge feast, and Janine is like, "What the hell?" And then on top of that, Gabler opens his mouth, and then Ellie and Janine find out that he knows that they went through his bag, and then Owen and Sammy get involved right after, and like the funniest thing, man. Like Owen has had like this really innocent edit, and then you just hear Owen saying Gabler's a fucking idiot. So we got like a lot of different like character moments in this episode. I don't know what it is, but this episode was like almost triple as good as the second best before this, whatever that was. I don't even know what that was. Maybe it's the premiere. But even that I actually don't know. So this episode was very, very strong. So right after this merge feast, there was no individual immunity challenge, which surprised me a little bit. I guess they just kind of did that so that they could save some time. But it did feel a little bit weird to have a vote without an individual immunity challenge, but more likely than not, it probably wouldn't have changed anything. So right off the bat, James's name gets thrown out for no real apparent reason. It was kind of random, kind of arbitrary. So I had a feeling he was going to stay. Like I actually thought from the edit it was really obvious that Ellie was going to go home. I just didn't know how it was going to happen exactly. What I actually thought would maybe happen was James would still receive majority vote, but Gabler would play his idol for him or give it to him. And then when we didn't get to see, like, I was actually thinking, like, just out of nowhere, James would, at an idol call, would be like, hey, Jeff. And then we get, like, a whole flashback of Gabler giving the idol to James. That's honestly what I thought was going to happen. And it would be, like, a majority vote, and then Ellie would go home. But based off of the edit, it seemed really obvious that Ellie was going to go home. So, I mean, James, like, his name comes up. I mean, him and Cassidy were, like, the only two Coco members, and just subconsciously, due to the fact that, like, Vessi helped Baka. Yeah, Vessi won that challenge first. So yeah, Vessi helped Baka to defeat Coco. I think even though Baka right now has the most numbers, I think that they still wanted to target Coco people because there's just a level of cohesion that like the Baka and Vessi tribe would have because they were helping each other in that one challenge that like the Coco tribe just wouldn't have. So I think that even though Baka has more members, which is why you'd assume that they would be the victims of the unintentional Tandang, I think that Coco is the one. I think they're the ones that like got targeted from this. I mean, this is all ironic that I'm saying all this because a Baka member did go home, but I think the reason why James's name got thrown out, really at all as a secondary option and originally a primary option before Gabler really pushed for the vote to be on Ellie, was because of Baka and Vessi helping each other in that one challenge. So I actually think James played this really well. I mean, he could have been really, really paranoid, and for all intensive purposes, I think a lot of people expected him to be very, very paranoid. But he overcame that. He didn't panic. He definitely could have panicked, but he didn't panic. He took this very, very well. He looked nervous when he got those 2 votes, but he handled this exactly how he should have. I mean, if he had panicked, people just wouldn't have trusted him as much. I mean, he basically did what Lindsay couldn't do. So by like having his name be on the line and knowing exactly what to do to make sure that it's not him. So I was very impressed with that. So yeah, like James has his name thrown out, and then Cody handles it even better. Like he says, like he finds out that his name is out there, and then people are just like, okay, your name's out there, but that's not what we want to do. And for Cody, that was enough. That was enough reassurance that he didn't need to like do anything special in order to stay in the game. He just needed to trust people. And sometimes you don't necessarily need to do anything special. Sometimes you just have to say, hey, look, we have the numbers here. I trust you, and you know, this is why this person should go home instead of me. But it's in you guys' hands, and I think that Cody and James handled this really well in this episode. So yeah, I don't have much criticism for them. I think that they handled this really well. So yeah, that's what happened with that. And then Ellie going home. She got a lot more votes than I was expecting. But I guess like once Kate Gabler really pushed for it to be Ellie, Ellie's name started to get a lot more steam and ammunition. And I think that like Janine was the one who originally went through Gabler's bag, but I think Janine was a lot more subtle about it, whereas Ellie victimized constantly. I mean, like yeah, I haven't talked about everything with this episode because there was so much that went on, but we even had that exchange with Ellie and Gabler, how they were saying to each other's faces how they didn't trust each other, and then they just walked on. Like they were very very good at talking for like a good period of time, or like taking up a good chunk of the edit, but like saying nothing at all to like reassure each other. So that was good television. Because it was just funny to see them like not trust each other in the slightest bit. So yeah, that's how I feel about that. So what else? Ellie got the most votes. Her name started to pick up a lot of steam. But yeah, like I actually kind of thought Gabler was going to give his idol to James, and he would receive majority vote, and then James it would be like this really big move, but it wouldn't matter a ton because like Gabler would get great content and make it far, but James would probably go home like soonish. That's actually what I kind of thought was going to happen. But no, that's not what happened. Gabler was able to get the numbers on Ellie to send her home, and on her way out, she basically said, "Okay, don't trust Gabler," and then he's just like right back at you. And the way how a lot of people think that Gabler handled this whole move, I mean, it wasn't great. Like his threat levels through the roof now because everyone knows this was his move. But I also think people might even just underestimate him. I mean, the beard, the personality, his age maybe will play a little bit of a role. I don't think people particularly going to think that he's as big of a threat as like he should be after this episode. So I oh my god, I want Gabler to do well so badly. Oh my god, Gabler, Alla Gabler. I mean, I think his edit's really going to pick up now. I mean, I really liked him in the pre-merge, and I knew that there was potential there, but he wasn't really doing anything super relevant. He kind of just like fell on his face constantly, but you knew that he was going to come back from this. I mean, it's and not for nothing. Yeah, 2.5 seconds of the preview right before they show the logo, they just zoom in on Gabler. That meant something, and you know, in my predictions, I predicted Gabler as my first boot. And I'm starting to really regret that. Like, and I'm so happy that I was wrong. So happy that I was wrong. Gabler is maybe my favorite on this cast at this point. I mean, yeah, it's between Cody and Gabler right now. But based like Cody didn't get a phenomenal edit in this episode. Like if I'm like based off of recency bias, I think Gabler is probably my favorite on the cast. But if I look at the season as a whole, it might be Cody. But yeah, those are the two right now that I'm liking the most on the season. I also like Owen more than the average person. He's probably my third favorite on this cast. He's not getting like too much screen time. Oh, something else I forgot to talk about, and I really really do like that they did this because like if you're watching a Survivor episode with your mom or with your dad or with your boyfriend or girlfriend or with your siblings or just someone that you want like a friend or just someone that you like want to introduce to the show, and then you're watching a season with them, they may not be as big of a fan as you are, so when you're watching it with them, they may ask like, well, who has what, who has an idol, who has an advantage, who has their vote, who doesn't have their vote. So I really really did like, as cheesy-ish as it was, not really though, I'm still really glad that they did this. They like while Owen was doing his confessional, which I think it's a really good sign that Owen was the one doing that confessional. You know, he has had a bit of a quiet edit, but something makes me think that like maybe he's gonna win the game, maybe. But as of right now, I still think my opinion from the last week hasn't really changed. I think yeah, Cassidy or Sammy is still your winner. But I did think it was really cool how they just showed all the names of people that have something or lost their vote, and they just attached it to what they had. And the editors are having a lot of fun this season. When Owen was doing his confessional, they just popped up no advantage right next to his name. Funny. I think the editors, they hired different people for this season. Like these editors have a good sense of humor. I mean, they know what they're doing, and I think that's been fun. It's been fun to see. The editors do have a very good sense of humor. This isn't like the only thing they did something like this. In the premiere, they showed Sammy's like 4 jobs and like a diagonal job title. Like they're having fun this season. The editors really are, and I think that's been cool to see. So yeah, I really do like that they did that. They showed what everybody has and who lost their vote, so it made it a little bit more clear for a casual viewer. And even if you're a super fan, I mean, if you're not the type of person that scrolls through the Reddit pages to try and figure out who has who, and you're able to see who has who from looking at each page, like, yeah, it's good that they did that. Like, there's no con to doing that. I mean, it makes it a lot easier now to figure out who has what. So yeah, I think that was a good move from an editing perspective. So what else? It was funny to see Janine go to the wrong mat and then run to the other mat. Carla didn't get a ton of screen time in this episode, which makes me think that like maybe she's not going to win. So I don't really know what else to talk about other than maybe just going through all the players and my opinions on them. So I'm going to talk with Janine. She got a really bad episode. Janine does have an idol, but I think what we're going to see with Janine is I think she's gonna play it correctly and go home next, or she's going to waste it and then go home next. I think that's what we're gonna see with her. I think she's gonna go home probably mid-merge. She's not getting a great edit. She's not a finale player. So yeah, that's kind of how I feel about her. She still has an idol, but yeah, I don't think that's gonna be enough. We have James. James is someone who honestly, like, he's definitely gonna go home in between the final 8 and 6 range. I really do believe that. But yeah, he had a good episode. He got 2 votes, but he handled it beautifully, and there wasn't really much that he could do to just have his name just like completely be off the line. So I think that it was good that he did this, that he handled the situation the way that he did, and I think that he is like on the track to like survive for a little while. Carla didn't have the best episode from an edit standpoint. She still looked pretty good. I mean, for all intents and purposes, it was impressive how people just have no clue that she has the idol. But she didn't get a ton of screen time. However, I do think like she's going to make Final 6 at least, based off of what we're seeing. But I think at that point in time, she's going to have a hard time. I don't think Carla's making it to the end. They're editing her as someone who is going to be a threat, and I think they're kind of doing something similar with Jessie. But I just don't see her winning at this point. It doesn't seem like your typical winners at it. It just seems like decoy winners at it. Which I'll talk about Jessie next, who is like in a similar light. I could see Jessie having like a downhill spiral from here, where he like I think he could be an FTC loser. I really do. Like Romeo, for example, in Survivor 42 had a really, really strong pre-merge, and then his edit and his game just kind of fizzled out. We saw something similar with Ryan Ulrich. I actually think something like that is similarly going to happen with Jessie. Jessie didn't do much in this episode. He didn't have a vote, and he was safe. So he kind of did what Omar said he was originally going to do, which was to shut the hell up, because if you're safe and don't have a vote, like you can't really do anything, so there's no point in even talking or like trying to make your own plans, because it'll just jeopardize your game because you have no power over things. So I think that, yeah, it was good on Jessie's part for doing that, but I think Jessie's likely gonna be a little bit more irrelevant in these next like several episodes, to be honest. He's gonna make it to the final 5. I almost know that based off of what we're seeing. But I actually think he might be an FTC loser. I think he's going to have a downhill spiral. He had a really, really perfect edit in that pre-merge, but you can be playing phenomenally on really small tribes and then make merge and then not do as well in the game. I mean, like if people trust you and like you're better at like making those connections in a smaller group, and then once the group gets bigger, it's a little bit more challenging because the game opens up and also changes so much. Some people are just better at the tribe game, and I think that that's maybe what we're seeing with Jessie. I mean, it was like that with Romeo and Survivor 42, and like I said before, it was like that with Ryan Ulrich. I think like every season with the 3-tribe starting format, there's always at least one person that still makes it to the merge, but they just played so much better in the pre-merge because that was like more so like a setting that like helped them better than the merge was, because the merge can be a little bit overwhelming because the game opens up so much and it changes so much. So yeah, Jessie's someone who I honestly kind of seen like not win. I think he's going to be an FTC loser. That's what I'm seeing right now. Cody handled his name getting thrown out pretty well in this episode. And he's someone who I think can still win. I think he's one of like the less obvious people that can still win the game. So I still have hope for Cody. I think that he's someone who is in a pretty good spot. I think he's gonna make finale. But I think he's probably gonna go home before I don't know, maybe he'll be an FTC loser. I don't know, like Jesse, Cody, and Cassidy, with Cassidy winning, I think is gonna be the final three as of right now. But Cody could easily be a fallen angel or a fifth placer. Dwight is gonna go home in the next 3 episodes. He got 0 confessionals. We barely saw him. Dwight is the only person on this cast that you forget is still in the game. He's getting the purple edit right now. I don't know if he's getting the least confessionals, but it just kind of seems like he is the most forgettable, even if he's not getting the least confessionals. And the only reason why I'm saying that is because I don't have the Edgic chart right in front of me, so I don't know if he's getting the least confessionals. But I'm just saying based off of what I've seen. In my opinion, from my perspective, Dwight is the most forgettable person left in the game right now. So he's probably going to go home pretty soon. It doesn't seem like they're investing too much in him. He's not going to go home in the next episode. I mean, I think that usually the first 2 merge boots have like some semblance of a story. Dwight doesn't have any of that. So he's probably just going to be one of those irrelevant mid-merge boots. They don't want to hype him up too much. So that you're like okay with him going home. His edit kind of reminds me of Jenna Bowman's right now from Ghost Island, where Jenna didn't have like a bad first episode by any means, but it was minimal and there wasn't much that went on. But then she's just someone who you forget about, one of the most like forgettable, jury members ever. And I think that that's kind of what we're seeing with Dwight, where he's just not going to get a ton of screen time really for the rest of his run, and then he's just going to go home. That's what I see about him. Gabler, I loved Gabler in this episode. He had his breakthrough. I already talked a ton about him, but his breakthrough was tonight, and he showed that he is a very good player, and he's someone to take seriously, because I don't think a lot of people, both in the game and even viewers, were taking him particularly seriously before this. So I think now you got to take him very seriously. Sammy, I'll talk about him next. So Sammy, I was surprised that his name just flat out never came up. I mean, he's someone who looks a little bit like an easier vote. He looks like your typical merge boot. He is a lot younger. They don't know that. But he is younger. I was a bit surprised that Sammy just completely got off scotch-free. Like, not even an option to go home. He was like, I think, yeah, he was the safest vulnerable person, wasn't he? I mean, I don't think anybody else that was vulnerable was, like, safer than he was. I mean, his name didn't come up at all. He was totally safe. I mean, Janine was pretty safe too, because there was no reason to vote Janine out over Ellie, and Janine also had an idol. But like, Sammy was like, it was just a little bit more bizarre that his name just didn't come up in any way, which is a testament to his social game. He's a physical threat, but who cares about that in modern Survivor? I mean, in the olden days, if you're a physical threat and you're also outnumbered, because the original starting tribe that you started on has less numbers, and you're the biggest physical threat, you're the vote. You're the vote. You go home. Like, that's obvious. But I think Survivor's changed now, where, first off, there's a lot less divided merge boots, and usually the merge boot is just someone who lacks social integration. That's what the new meta of Survivor is now. Physical threats don't necessarily go home right away. So I think that Sammy had a pretty good episode. I was impressed with him. We got to see that. It was really cool to see him just not get targeted in any way. So I'll talk about Owen next. So I thought it was a good sign that his confessional, like, they're making fun of him in the edit by putting like no advantage. They showed his name in the opening credits when Owen had that one bit in the premiere where he's basically like, it's my dream to see my name in the opening credits, and they do that for him. And then in this episode, they show what all the people have in the game, what possessions they have, idols, advantages, who has their vote, who doesn't. And they did that over Owen's confessional. Due to the fact that it doesn't seem like Owen's going to be your winner, it just was a little bit strange that they did that, which makes me think maybe he is the winner. I don't know. I think it was interesting that they did that for Owen. We'll see. He didn't get like a ton of content, but I thought it was interesting how he was the one to get that confessional over who has what within the game. So I think that could potentially mean something. Next up, we have Cassidy. I think Cassidy still is your winner. She's getting a very, very quiet edit. But, like, when they were walking on the trail right before getting in the boat to head to the merge, they were like showing Cassidy in the front line for like 6 whole seconds instead of like zooming into anybody else, just kind of fixating you on Cassidy. And then like just out of nowhere, like then everybody else branches out and Cassidy gets a really quiet edit. And Jeff Probst did say in an interview that the winner's edit is abolished for this season and how it doesn't exist. Obviously that's not really true. Like you have to build up the narrative of a winner, but I do understand what he's saying by saying that, which basically he's trying to say that we're going to edit the season in a way where it's the best that we can possibly make it, rather than making you love the winner. That's why I think Cassidy is your winner, because Sammy is like the next person in line that I think can win. But like Sammy, Carla, Cody, Jesse are like more obvious winners. Like unless James somehow wins the game, or I guess Owen, but even Owen, he is getting like an interesting amount of content where like he could win. You could kind of see it. Unless James is your winner, it seems to me like with the logic that the winner's edit is abolished, I think Cassidy is your winner. And there's people like Dwight who like, yeah, sure, if the winner's edit was abolished, Dwight would still have a chance of winning, but no, like they'd still want us to be a little bit more invested and actually, like the guy rather than seeing him fall on his face in the first episode and get no screen time in the merge episode. Yeah, so that's kind of how I feel about that. I think Cassidy is your winner. Really, really quiet edit, but that's what I'm thinking as of right now. Ryan, when he flipped upside down in that challenge to help Carla up, it was amazing. It was really, really cool to watch. And he's the type of person, though, where if he was actually going to do really well in the game, due to the fact that he has moments like that you can't ignore, he'd probably be getting more confessionals. But also, Jonathan Young didn't get very many confessionals in Survivor 42, because you didn't really need to give him a lot of confessionals, because his appearance was so obvious that he was there, and his role was just to do phenomenal in challenges, that he was someone who didn't really need a ton of confessionals. We could maybe be seeing a story like that with Ryan. But even Jonathan had a pretty good edit in the pre-merge. Like, Ryan just kind of got nothing. And that's why I think Ryan's probably going to go home sometime soon. Because they're not really making us super invested in him. All right, then the last person... Okay, so yeah, I'm going to talk about Noelle and Ellie. So Noelle didn't get much screen time in this episode. I mean, like I've said before, it's inspirational to see her like with one leg out there, and it doesn't seem like it's limiting her in challenges. I think it's been cool to see. She didn't get a ton of screen time, but she was the one that had to bet on which team was going to win, and I think that at a certain point she was starting to lose hope, but they ended up coming back, and she was safe. So yeah, Noelle also, she still has her steal a vote. I'm curious to see how that's going to play a role, because she got a very quiet episode here. So I don't exactly know if she's going to like go home with that in her pocket, or she's going to play it. Maybe she's going to just play it in a really ineffective way. I don't really know. Maybe she goes home with it in her pocket, or she plays it and then still goes home. Like, there's a lot of things that could happen with that. It's really hard to know, but if her edit does pick up, it'll be a little bit more obvious if we're supposed to root for her, and that will determine whether she's going to use the steal a vote correctly. But as of right now, like, the steal a vote is really the only thing about Noelle's game that I find particularly interesting. Like, I don't Noelle is one of the people in this cast that is like less memorable, at least in my mind. But I think her edit could potentially pick up. I wouldn't be surprised at all if she made it like far-ish. But I do personally think as of right now they would give her a little bit more screen time, just a little bit more. If she was actually going to make the distance in the game, I think she's probably going to be gone before the end game. So the last person I'm going to talk about is the person who was voted out this episode. We have Ellie. Ellie was a lot of fun in this season. She got a phenomenal premiere with the most confessionals, and she had a lot of emotional content. But even with all this emotional content, we were seeing her being like someone who could potentially be a really good player, good social player, knows how to work people, with her being a psychologist, a clinical psychologist, or is she a therapist? I think she's a clinical psychologist. With us seeing this, it made us kind of think that that she'd be like this really, really good player. But we kind of saw her be someone that we weren't supposed to particularly root for. And that kind of made me think, like, okay, like, Ellie's probably not going to make a long run in this game. And then we see in this episode, and Ellie has that one confessional where she's like, I'm such a good social player. It was something along those lines. I'm such a good social player. I have connections with everybody. Things are going so well, or something along those lines. When she said that, I knew she was toast. And that's why I thought it was really, really obvious Ellie was going to go home. I just didn't know particularly how it was going to happen. I actually thought Gaylor was going to give his idol to James, and it was going to be like this really, really massive move, because I mean, Gabler is someone who you know that he has potential. You know that he's going to have this like comeback arc based off of watching him in the pre-merge. But you're like, what is he going to do? He has to do something big, right? So that's why I kind of thought he was going to play his idol for James or give it to him prior, and then he would receive majority vote and Ellie would go home. But that didn't happen, and Ellie ended up going home. I was sad to see. I was so like this was very bittersweet because I was sad to see Ellie go. I thought she was a great character on this season. Kind of like your Angelina of the season, but goes home with the final 13. So like it was a little bit sad, but at the same time, I really wanted to see Gabler succeed and win this battle. I did not want Ellie and Janine to win this battle. That's predicated mainly off of the edit, but I still just love Gabler. Alla Gabler, he's ready to go. He's gonna be in the swamp and he's gonna come up and he's gonna eat you for the rest of the season. He's gonna slay. Period. King. Yeah. So I'm really excited to see him. He's great. I really, really hope he wins. I'd probably say him and Janine have the slimmest chance of winning the game right now out of everybody left. Like, dang, even like Dwight and Noel and yeah, even James, I think have a better chance of winning at this point. So yeah, it's unfortunate that like Gabler's winning chances aren't too high, but based off what we're seeing, I think he could be a finale player. Like right now, I'm starting to think that like Jesse, Cody, Cassidy, Gabler, and Sammy is your final five with Carla going home at 6 and like a big move. I think that could potentially be what we're seeing. But like Gabler is someone who like if he gets to the end, maybe he is able to win the game, and like that's where that's where this edit is coming from, and he's like this really really iconic figure of the show. You know, like it wouldn't flabbergast me if that happened. But he's just his character just makes me think he can't win. Well, actually, I'll take that back. I would be surprised, very very surprised if Gabler won this season. But yeah, like Ellie ended up going home really really early on this season. You know, 6th boot. Yeah, it was a little bit unfortunate. But I really was happy to see Alla Gabler succeed. It's as simple as that. And I think that his edit's really going to pick up, and he's gonna start to do a lot better with his game, be more relevant, and probably make some bigger moves, and start to play a little bit more smart, and maybe his game will be better than his personality. We could potentially be seeing some kind of arc like that. So with that being said, I got nothing else for you here. And yeah, I don't have any like closing thoughts. I mean, I'm excited to see what happens in the future. With how hectic this episode was, we could potentially seeing the next episode be equally as hectic. And there's going to be more options of who to vote out, right? Like one person's going to win individual immunity, and there's going to be 11 different people that can go home. There's a lot of opportunity there for a lot of different things to happen, and I'm excited for that because like I think that like next episode is very unpredictable. You don't know for sure what's going to happen, so. Yeah, with that being said, I'm looking forward to seeing what's going to happen in the next episode. I'm JPB Productions. Thank you for watching. See you guys.